Okay, now we're going to try something different today. I've put the camera on the other side of the screen, so we've got a different view. I've combed my hair this morning. Now today's story is the first of the actual Crane Lorry stories. This one's called Corn Bin Calamity, or Calamity with a Corn Bin. A corn bin is a tall thing on legs that you put animal feed in, and so it's high up so that it can be used to the gravity fed, and the feed drops down the bottom and it goes off to where the animals are with the minimum of help. And while I was at Rundle's, then a lot of my job, at least once a week, often twice, was actually using the Crane Lorry to take these bins from a bin builder in Horncastle, to the location where they were sold and erected, normally in Nottinghamshire somewhere. Chicken sheds and pig sheds and animal sheds where they needed bulk feed systems. So this was an amusing story. This was the first Calamity. The first one. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, we're going to begin. Now this story is from the series about the Crane Lorry, 1984. It's taken from It's a Rum Life, Book 4, Volume 1, Northcote, 1984 to 1994. And the story is called The Corn Bin Calamity. One of a number of regular calamities at Rundle's involved a large corn storage bin. At least once a week, while I was working for the firm, the Crane Lorry would be hired to a local company from Horncastle to deliver and erect one or more of their new huge corn storage bins. They were normally supplied to farms with large numbers of animals housed in sheds or barns. The feed could then be delivered in bulk into the tall bins and discharged through patent automatic systems to the animals inside the buildings. Poultry and pig farms were the two most frequent users. The job involved collecting the bin from the yard in Horncastle and delivering to the farm. Very often this was in Nottinghamshire. The bins are normally constructed from round galvanised sheeting, and they stood on long legs to give sufficient height for gravity discharge of the feed. On windy days, these presented some problems as the installation engineers attempted to drill holes in the prepared concrete standings to take the captive bolts and ensure the bins did not simply blow away. I never actually lost a bin, but on one job we brought a second-hand bin back from the site, as it had been sold to another client. This bin was different. It was made of sheet steel and of double capacity. In other words, two rectangular bins joined side by side. It was quite heavy and had extra long legs. There was not normally a problem fitting the bins onto the lorry, as their width never often exceeded the 8 feet or so lorry body, more than a foot on either side. Their legs, though, hung over the back. The lorry bed was 22 feet long, and an extra light board was needed with vivid criss-cross markings to make sure nobody ran into the protruding legs. I need to digress here a bit to explain that the HIAB type hydraulic crane mounted on the lorry behind the driver's cab had no way of measuring the weight of the things it lifted. Times have changed, and modern cranes are far different now. And most not only have weighing devices, but lots of safety features too. The bit about not knowing exact weights was the main reason for most of my catastrophes. That, together with the fact that the bosses always seemed to expect miracles. They believed their crane to be invincible. Back to the double-sided bin. And it was going to a client not far from home. A pig farmer at Mavis Enderby, just outside Spilsby, had purchased the bin to increase his storage capacity and thereby buy his animal feed cheaper. It was late in the afternoon when we returned, and it took a little time to find the site and the farmer. He eventually showed us where the bin was to go. The spot was alongside some pig houses, about 25 feet from the nearest point I could get to with the lorry. There was a sheer drop of about 5 feet in the way as the ground levels changed. The bin dimensions were about 12 feet wide by 12 feet by 8 feet, with the legs attached at the bottom. The whole lump was 30 feet long or high when stuck up in the air. It had taken some time and care to take down from its original site and lift onto the lorry. Consequently, I knew this was going to be tricky without the extra distance to reach. It might help to explain that as the crane reaches further away from the lorry and extends its nose, as it were, then it loses its lifting power. Can you imagine lifting a bucket of water with your arm fully extended? It's not possible. But if you try with a bent elbow, you can manage it. The same principle works with the hydraulic crane. It was just like a huge hydraulic arm. To place this bin in the exact required location would mean a full extension. I'd even been supplied with an extra length of H-girder steel extension, homemade by the chaps back at Rundle's Engineering Works. This 100-weight or so length of steel slipped into the end of the extending arm to make it even longer. A little like holding a long rod in your fingers and hanging the bucket of water onto that with your arm at full stretch. I managed to get the bin off the lorry and alongside. I needed the extra extension with the idea that I could perhaps crank the elbow of the jib more to cope with the weight at full stretch. The bin edged nearer to its spot, and then the time came to lift it vertically. Bit by bit, I moved it further away, gently walking it on its legs to keep some of the weight off the crane. Then the last lap, to stand the bin totally erect and slide it into place on its concrete base. As I slowly raised the crane jib and extended the arm to full stretch to take the full weight of the bin at full extent, there was a protesting groan, and the homemade extension slowly buckled under the pressure at the end of the jib and folded like a bent banana. This piece of steel, I must explain, was made of H-girder about 4 inches square and 6 feet long. By no means a weakling. It weighed almost 100 weight on its own. So the effort being exerted on it must have been extreme. Without the extension, there was no way I could reach the required spot, so I had to drag the bin gently back and lay it down flat on the ground. The crane had actually coped remarkably well. It could have managed had it been longer, or if the homemade extension had been a little bit stronger. On returning to the yard to explain my problem, I was met by a contingent of workers from the workshop. Word had got around. Keith had earned himself a nickname, the Wrecker. This was to stick and be reinforced. There we are. I hope you enjoyed that little story, brought to you by Cracker Books, written and read by Keith Sanders. There we are. that was the end of the first Calamity. The end of the first. There's 2 more to come. The next one is a bit more dramatic, and the third one is very dramatic, but it's a new nasty one, but not for me. It was just something unfortunate happened that was a bit serious. Quite a dramatic story. On the Buzzsprout site, lots of folks have read that one. The other ones are a bit tame by comparison, but I'm doing them in sequence. So link coming up then for the Cracker books, all the books you can download, 10 complete books, picture story books, more serious story books, books for children, and then there's the access to the Buzzsprout audio stories that you can download and listen to on your phone or whatever, whenever you like. Now, they're the easiest way to follow the stories. There we are. Thanks for being with us today, and cheerio for now.